And bright conditions up north. That's what we will see today. It will feel quite warm and sticky in this the province. A risk of thunderstorms still in the forecast. For Winnipeg right now, we're looking at 16 to 18 degrees across the city. Mostly cloudy. It's going to feel humid today, as mentioned. We're going to see mostly cloudy conditions all morning, and then during your lunch break, we'll see that transition in the Pembina Valley region from Morden, Winkler out to the province. The skies will turn cloudy this morning. More chance of thunderstorms this later this morning. Then a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period. Highs would be around 24 and also humid there. Winds coming from the southeast. In the Westman region, Brandon all the way down to the Nepoa area, we're seeing misty conditions this morning. If you're driving, look out for misty conditions and wildlife. We're going to see cloudy conditions also. Current temperatures in the mid-teens with sports in 16, 17 in some areas. It will stay cloudy today with a slight chance of showers late in the afternoon and possibly some thunderstorms, warming up to around 23. With the humidity factored in, it's going to feel close to 30 degrees and also mild winds coming from the northeast. In the Parkland region, Dauphin, Russell, Roblin, all the way down to the Riding Mountain area, we're seeing cooler morning temperatures in the low teens. We're talking about 13 degrees in some areas. It will climb to about 23 with cloudy skies, giving away to a mix of sun and clouds. Later, the humidex will be around 30 degrees. The winds coming from the east. In the Interlake region, Gimli and surrounding area, we're talking about overcast this morning. Temperatures in the upper teens around 17. Expect cloudy day. Then a mix of sun and clouds break through later in the afternoon. Highs will be between 24 and 25 for that region. The humidities will be in the 30s also. In the powerfully influenced nearby regions, we're looking at clear skies there. Then once we get deeper into the morning, we're going to see lots of sunshine. Temperatures currently in the mid-teens around 15, warming to 26 today. Thompson, you are currently seeing clear conditions also with temperatures around 13 degrees. We'll see your temperature climb to around 25 and it's going to feel pleasant there. Winds coming from the northeast. While for Churchill and the York region, cooler this time, 10 degrees, light drizzle we're staying there. That should clear and then we expect highs to be around 2021. But for Winnipeg right now, we're looking at 18 degrees and it's cloudy outside.
All right, thanks a lot, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, what's going on the commute here?
Yeah, here actually haven't heard of any major issues out there on the roads this morning here in Winnipeg. But of course, saw pictures of all that flooding in Steinbach last night. Roads, cars, hearing stories anecdotally, cars stalled, stuck in the water. And I don't know what that looks like now because apparently the rain peaked around 1 a.m. last night. I'm very curious what the roads look like now. So if you're in Steinbach, you're trying to get somewhere. Tell me what you're seeing out there on the roads or on the highways around Steinbach as well, or that southeastern Manitoba area. Would love to get some updates so I can share them with your fellow listeners in the area. Give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093. I'll say it twice, 204-788-3093.
You also wanted to mention that you talked to the mayor.
Yes, I did talk to the mayor, and he is just unavailable for comment right now, but he also did see some flooding in his basement as well last night.
All right, so we have some folks from Steinbach writing to us on Facebook. I posted those pics there from our reporter, Christopher Yarrow. Gil Landry saying lots of rain, but it is all slowly going down, and that was his report as of 30 minutes ago. The city councillor saying that it is improving. Lynn Amber, though, showing really, really a lot of rain in Le Broquerie. A lot of standing water in Le Broquerie. So obviously, Broquerie is right adjacent to Steinbach there, very close, and so it was crazy. Brian Workington said in Steinbach this morning he's taking a picture of his rain gauge here. His rain gauge, so I mean local amounts can always be more here because our official count was 103 millimeters. His rain gauge has got 125. So we're still getting different rainfall amounts all over Steinbach coming in this morning, but quite an event there. We'll get those photos up and continue to follow this story as we go through the day. I also want to mention that I said that we were going to take you to Kelowna, BC, where officials there designated an encampment site, and they created that to help with their houseless population. If you want to hear that story, please go to the CBC Listen app. It was an interview with Faith Fundell on Up to Speed yesterday. Because of the flooding this morning, we're unable to get it on in this first hour. getting busy. Well, speaking of busy and active, let's go to Hallie Cottenham. She's here with our business news. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
Stock markets everywhere are on fire. Where does it end?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be on the radio with you this morning, Marcy.
Fair enough.
Canada's main stock index is absolutely along for the ride. The TSX set a new record yesterday. Same story in the U.S. with the Dow shooting up. The NASDAQ was up too. And analysts are crediting this across-the-board confidence that the U.S. Fed will cut interest rates next week. Closer to home, some positive political reactions to yesterday's major projects announcement. Manitoba's Premier Rob Kinu said it was a great day for Manitoba, a great day for Canada. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said, finally, they get it. BC's Premier David Eby is happy that 40% of the projects are in his province. Nova Scotia's Premier Tim Houston, Progressive Conservative, also very positive. Opposition Leader Pierre Poilievre, less so, called the list pathetic.
No surprise to the next story here that the beautiful game is a big draw. But what is the update on ticket sales for FIFA World Cup right now?
FIFA says it received more than 1.5 million applications in the first 24 hours of the pre-sale, and that people are entering for a chance to win the chance to buy tickets from 210 countries. The highest number of applications coming from tournament hosts, including Canada, but also the U.S. and Mexico. And then a series of countries, no surprise, soccer-loving places, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, England, Spain, Portugal, and Germany. Now, there were some glitches in the initial hours of the sale. Some people waited for many hours or got error messages or were kicked out of line. But if you're online waiting for FIFA tickets, fire up another device and sign up for a refund for that bread price-fixing settlement with Loblaw. Canadians who bought packaged bread between 2001 and 2021 are entitled to a piece of the $404 million pie. You just have to go over to CanadianBreadSettlement.ca. And here's a bit of good news. If you've already received a $25 gift card under Loblaw's apology back in 2019, as I did, you could still get some money, minus the $25 that you already received. The final sum that each person will get will depend on how many other people also file a claim.
Let's finish with Eastman Kodak. They're back, I understand, with a product that's pretty red hot right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this. It's a line of 1980s inspired digital point-and-shoot cameras. They're called Kodak Charmera. Now, I was thinking that it was charming camera, but in retrospect, I think it's a play on the word charm because these cameras are very small. They weigh just 30 grams. They're just 2.5 inches or 7 centimeters long, small enough to fit on your keychain. And they're being marketed as a fashion accessory. They sell for about $30 US, striking a note of nostalgia with some consumers. It launched this week. It's already sold out on Kodak's website. So they might be giving retro, but the marketing of this, very 2025, the Charmeras are sold in a blind box packaging like Labubu's. Means buyers don't know which camera they're getting until they buy them. Retail analysts say Kodak seems to have tapped into Gen Z's interest in vintage stuff, if the 80s are vintage, or what the Global Wellness Institute identified as the top trend in 2025. It's called analog wellness. In any case, these keychain cameras are breathing life into what is a struggling legacy brand.
Now, I'm now of the age, I don't know about you, but I wish I kept all those things, right? Like, yes. I'm like, where's my sister's yellow, Walkman? And where's my little instant camera from when I was a kid, right?
I found, I was doing some decluttering and I found a disc, Kodak disc camera.
Oh, a disc camera.
Yes. Why do I still have that, Marcy? Why?
I don't know, but hang on to it because maybe it's going to be valuable with this comeback and interest from the Gen Zs. All right, Hallie, have an awesome weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Too. Cheers.
Cheers to you too. That is Hallie Cottenham with our business news. Well, good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for joining us here on CBC's Information Radio. Glad to have you along. It is school day number 3 on the cycle. In case you're curious, here we are at Friday, September the 12th. In the city of Winnipeg, we're actually the hot spot. It's 18 degrees in Winnipeg. It's mostly cloudy right now. And for today, our high is going to be 24 with cloud cover continuing. With Humidex, it's going to be sticky as well. It'll feel like around 31 degrees. Well, let's turn to medical news in our province. The number of measles cases, as you may have heard in the news, in Canada overall continues to rise. Here in Manitoba, the province says there have been more than 200 probable and confirmed cases of measles. And now with school back in session, there is concern that the highly infectious disease will only continue to spread. Dr. Devinder Singh is a medical officer of health with Southern Health. He spoke with CBC's Christopher Garreau and said that after years of no cases, the current measles outbreak is unusual. Now he's urging parents to make sure that their kids are up to date on their shots.
In terms of efforts to increase immunization, which is by far the most important thing that people can do to protect themselves and their families and communities, there's lots of things that have gone on and still continue to go on. So like one routine thing that Manitoba currently does and has for many, many years is to send out letters to every family of every child who's overdue for their immunizations at several time points. So any child who's overdue for any immunization, their family should be getting a letter when they're 15 months, if they're overdue for any of their earlier immunizations than that, at 20 months, at 5.5 years, and then every child in Manitoba, regardless of whether you're overdue or caught up with everything, should be getting a letter at age 7 that has your complete immunization record. So that's something that we've done for many years and continue to do. So families should know if they're overdue, if they get any of those letters at any of those time points. But also, in addition to that, public health regularly has clinics, and the specific number of clinics and hours vary depending on community needs. So, for example, when there was a case in the school last spring, we had immunization clinic that was able to be offered in the school setting after school hours were done, so that hopefully and into the evening, so hopefully families could attend, even if they were working, hopefully they'd be able to come after work, that kind of thing. We also have daytime, evening clinics in various communities, again, just at different times, depends on kind of what's needed based on that community. And if there's any suggestion that the demand for what's available in the community is higher than what we currently offer, then we add more clinics. So it really depends on what the needs are for each area.
And if people didn't get those letters, or their child's a little older and they're just not sure, or they think they did, but they're not 100%. How would they get an immunization record for their child, or even for adults who aren't sure if they got it?
Yeah, so the easiest way that people could probably get immunization records, that I think is probably the easiest for most people, is to request one online. So if you go to the provincial public health website and you go to the immunization area under immunization records, you can just submit a form that goes to the province and they will mail you your records. So that's probably the easiest thing that most people can do. However, if you want to go to a healthcare provider to get it for any reason, then your primary care provider has access to all of your immunization records on an electronic source that they use called eChart. Pharmacies have access to the records through a system that they use called FIMS, and then public health, whatever your local public health office also has access. So you could go to any of those provider types, and they would be able to provide you with your immunization records.
That's Dr. Devinder Singh, Medical Officer of Health with Southern Health, in conversation there with CBC's Christopher Giroux, who works in our Steinbach Bureau. He's responding to, in Manitoba, the numbers coming out yesterday, the updated numbers. The province says there have been more than 200 probable and confirmed cases of measles now in Manitoba.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
Well, we are working on a couple of angles out of the flooding last night in Steinbach. Yeah, the Steinbach and area animal rescue, for example, impacted and moving animals. Also, we're getting images still of new images of how much rain fell and what Main Street looked like around 1 a.m. last night west of Brant. People with water just up over their thighs. Cars, you can't even see the tires on some smaller vehicles. It was so deep. So this was flooding because of rain that fell really fast. So over 24 hours, 103 millimeters, but even localized amounts even deeper, more localized amounts rather even higher. Also Le Brocquerie, some pictures now coming in from Le Brocquerie to my Facebook page this morning. So thanks to everybody who's been sharing what happened last night in your community. Brian Workington sharing his rain gauge photo. Lynn Amber showing us what was going on in Le Brocquerie with that heavy rain. So we'll see what things look like there this morning and if drainage would have helped. We talked to a city councilor early this morning. He says they're feeling like today's going to be obviously a day of cleanup and understanding the impact of everything as the heaviest rains did start around 12:30 a.m. It is mostly cloudy in Winnipeg, 18 degrees. Brandon's misty and 16. Thompson is clear and 5 degrees. And unfortunately, Steinbach, your city is expecting that you could see just a few lingering showers early this morning. But right now, if we look at current conditions, you're looking okay. It doesn't seem to be raining in Steinbach currently. Well, next on the show, let's turn our attention to artificial intelligence. All week long, we've been talking about AI and its impact on various aspects of our lives, including yesterday, government regulation, earlier, schools. Today, let's talk about mental health. For young people struggling with anxiety and depression, especially, getting the right support when they need it can be a challenge. So talking to a chatbot in times of crisis might seem like a reasonable option, but it's a scenario that does come with some very serious risks. We have looked at this locally, but let's talk more about it. Joining me for his perspective, Mark Daly, professor in the Department of Computer Science at Western University's Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. Good morning.
Good morning.
So AI, and specifically ChatGPT, as I said, has been in the news lately for the role that it allegedly played in a very serious story. This is a teenager suicide, this story developing in the news. What do you make of a story like that?
I mean, of course, it's an enormous human tragedy. And it's also a mirror we can hold up to our society to understand that this advanced, complex technology we've introduced into it is having real consequences.
So for people that missed that story, I mean, part of the aspect of AI here is that AI was seen to encourage this teen to take their life?
There have been multiple instances of that, and it's related to the way the chatbots are trained to engage the user. And so as the user goes down a particular line of reasoning, they will typically support the user in that reasoning. Most of the chatbots are also trained to, when they recognize a mental health crisis, stop, potentially alert a human and offer supportive information like suicide hotlines, but it's impossible to always get that right every single time.
And so when you say support a user, if someone is talking to a chatbot about their despair perhaps and their intention to take their life, could that be then, seen as, I'm going to support you in what your intention is in this moment? And is it that risky to engage with these things right now?
For every instance where someone has harmed themselves, there are thousands of instances where the technology has been supportive. So, there's a Medium post. I put my suicide note into ChatGPT and it saved my life. And so it's someone talking about the exact opposite experience. And so you can't categorize, you can't say the technology is uniformly good or universally bad. It has different failure modes.
Got it. Now, we've seen OpenAI put out a statement saying they're developing parental controls, for example. What will it take for these tools to be both beneficial and safe for us to use when you look at this in the future for better controls?
Yeah, that's exactly the right question. So when a human practices therapy, that's a licensed profession. They have to be educated. They have to have, certified skills, and we regulate that. Right now, we have a technology that is doing some of what a human therapist does, and it's not regulated at all. On the other hand, the fact that we're having this conversation, that so many people are using this technology off-label as a therapy tool, tells us there's a massive unmet need. So what we have to do as a society is study this, bring in mental health experts and public health experts to devise guidelines, regulations, and educational resources so that we can get the maximum benefit from this while reducing the harms.
In terms of the implications of AI being trained, as you said, in the general population, as more and more people are sharing now, even their innermost thoughts with these bots, what are the concerns around privacy?
The reality is, even if the vendor you're working with promises to keep your data private, cybersecurity breaches happen. And so you have to be aware as a user that while it's unlikely, it is possible that anything you put into a chatbot that exists in the cloud could come back someday and be made public and linked to you.
Anything to add, Mark, that we should understand as we, move forward and, the potential for AI in the field of mental health only continues to grow? Because as you said, for all the concerns, there's also a lot of benefits. So anything you'd like to add?
I think it's really important that all of us talk to those who govern us and get the conversation going. How do we ensure that this technology has the maximum possible benefit in reducing human suffering while controlling all of those harms?
Really appreciate having you on with us to respond to the story. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is Mark Daly with us live, professor in the Department of Computer Science and Western University's Chief AI Officer. Now, just because we've been talking about what happened to that teen, the Canadian Suicide Crisis Helpline, I just want to add, you can access 24/7. It is 3 numbers, 988. 3 minutes now to 7 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Let's go now live to our news center. Lauren Donnelly is there and she has the day's headlines today. Good morning.
Good morning. Manitoba has lost 2 seizure and epilepsy specialists in the last year. The departures leave only 2 epileptologists at the Health Sciences Centre. Both advocacy groups and patients fear that the losses will result in delays in care. And a proposed housing development in South St. Vital is facing opposition from residents and city staff. A&S Homes wants to subdivide an area, but there are concerns about the pressure that could put on the aquifer from which most homes in the area draw their water. We'll have more on those stories coming up after World Report.
All right, thanks very much, Lauren. In Winnipeg today, mostly cloudy, 18 degrees. Our high today is 24, and a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon. Misty and Brandon, 16, Thompson clear and 5, and in Steinbach, we're watching your weather because you still have a slight chance of showers in your forecast. In the next hour of Information Radio, we are going to talk to the president of the Steinbach and Area Animal Rescue to build on what we've been hearing in the news and this morning and about the overland flooding there last night. I should say the basement flooding, street flooding. So we're going to hear more about what happened as they were frantically trying to move animals as this developed very quickly right around 12:30 a.m. In addition, in the next hour of Information Radio, we are going to be talking more about people who are committing crimes while out on bail in Manitoba. We've had several cases this month. That has sparked calls for bail reform once again. One criminal defense attorney, though, says that these are nothing but isolated, sensationalized instances, while serious and tragic in her language, quote. She says that we need to deeply understand why people breach bail and what is not working in the system. She's also calling for some reforms. So stay tuned. We're going to get her perspective coming up in a feature interview at about 7:45. And there's a big plane pull happening to something fun here. We're going to tell you more about it. It is in support of United Way. So that's all coming up on Information Radio on CBC. Stay with us. World Report's next.
On the current. Computers are rapidly transforming the way we live and learn here in Canada.
A few years into students starting to use artificial intelligence, teachers are thinking more deeply about how it's changing the classroom and the lives of young people. The benefits, risks, and profound effects of AI on learning coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Utah's governor is pleading for the public's help to find the person who killed Charlie Kirk. The conservative activist was fatally shot during a rally at a Utah university on Wednesday. And late last night, the FBI released new video showing the suspect fleeing the scene. Steve Futterman has more.
Investigators have a number of important clues, pictures, videos, the likely murder weapon, but they still have not made an arrest. The pictures taken by security cameras show a man wearing a dark cap, blue jeans, and sunglasses. Last night, officials released a video of the suspect moments after the shooting, running across the top of the building from where the fatal shot was fired. A key portion comes when the suspect reaches the edge of the building. Bo Mason of the Utah Department of Public Safety narrated for reporters.
He's going to climb off the edge and then drop down to the ground. As he did that, he left some palm impressions. There's some smudges, some places we're looking to collect DNA.
Officials hope something in the video or pictures will trigger someone's memory. The murder weapon was discovered not far from the campus. Robert Bowles is with the FBI office in Salt Lake City.
It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled.
Authorities have received more than 7,000 tips. 200 people have been interviewed. The FBI is offering a $100,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest of Charlie Kirk's killer. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Orem, Utah.
To news here at home, CBC News has learned new details about Prime Minister Mark Carney's plan to address anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. In recent years, Canada has seen shots fired at religious institutions. Mosques and synagogues have received bomb threats, and people say they're being harassed at their places of worship. The government is introducing new legislation to crack down on those crimes as early as next week. With the exclusive details, here's Ashley Burke.
When our laws repeatedly fail to protect those basic rights, we need new laws.
While addressing MPs this week, Prime Minister Mark Carney signaled new legislation is coming to combat a rise in hate.
All Canadians must be able to get up, go to work, go to their church, temple, mosque, community center, and then come home and sleep soundly at night.
A source says as early as Tuesday, the government could propose new intimidation and obstruction offenses under the criminal code. That could make it illegal to intentionally and willfully obstruct people from accessing places of worship, schools, or community centers. Justice Minister and Attorney General Sean Fraser hinted at it yesterday.
Think of a synagogue, a mosque, a church, but also community centers, schools, or specific places that are designed specifically for a given community. We want to add criminal provisions that would prohibit the obstruction of those facilities and the intimidation of the people seeking to use them.
A source says the government also plans to propose a separate offense for anyone breaking the law while motivated by hatred. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Prime Minister of Albania has made a historic appointment. Edi Rama says his cabinet now includes the world's first ever artificial intelligence minister. No, not a minister of artificial intelligence, a minister that is artificial intelligence.
I krijuar nga inteligjenca artificiale.
The AI advisor is called Diela, which is Albanian for sun. It will be in charge of public funding projects and fighting corruption in public tenders. The Prime Minister says this will guarantee decisions will be 100% free of corruption. Legal experts say more work is needed to establish Diela's official status. A pistol used by law enforcement and militaries is at the center of a controversy over safety concerns. Last week, the weapon made by Sig Sauer misfired in the holster of a Charlottetown police officer. The P320 is already the subject of multiple lawsuits in the United States, but as Mary Brewster reports, it is the handgun of choice for the Canadian military.
Gun owners and even law enforcement in the U.S. fell in love with the Sig Sauer P320. It is the official pistol of the U.S. Army and more recently the Canadian military, which ordered almost 20,000 of them. There have now been 2 reported cases of misfires involving the weapon in this country and literally hundreds of cases in the U.S.
I would say really think hard about distributing this weapon.
Jeff Bagnell, a Connecticut lawyer who has litigated cases against the gun manufacturer, with some advice for the Canadian military. He says there are several class action lawsuits in the U.S. underway, and a number of local police forces this summer pulled the weapon from service.
This is really not an attack on Sig Sauer. It is addressing a problem with one particular gun that has shown enormous problems across the United States, outside of the United States, and it's really foolish to act like it's not happening.
A Canadian Special Forces soldier was wounded almost 5 years ago while holstering the P320. The RCMP is investigating this latest incident involving Charlottetown police, where the gun seemingly went off by itself. Bagnall says that's the biggest complaint about the weapon, and he points to the death this summer of a U.S. Air Force security officer following a misfire. Sig Sauer was asked for comment by CBC News, but it did not respond. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
The NHL says those 5 former World Junior Hockey players who were acquitted of sexual assault can return to play in the league as of December 1st. They will also be eligible to sign with a team as soon as October 15th and can begin conditioning 1 month later. Karen Pauls has reaction.
Rebound, and what a save by Carter Hart.
Goaltender Carter Hart and his former World Junior teammates are one step closer to playing in the NHL. Hart, Michael McLeod, Alex Formenton, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote were acquitted of sexual assault charges in July. The NHL says the allegations were deeply troubling and unacceptable. The behavior falls woefully short of the league standards, but they weren't convicted and have expressed regret and remorse, clearing the way for their return. Allison Forsyth is an advocate for safe sport.
I think it is sending a direct message that it wasn't a big deal, and honestly, it really was to a lot of women in this country.
The NHL doesn't have a formal personal conduct policy like other professional sports do, which means the league and teams handle cases like this individually. Christy Elaine is a professor of sociology and a Canada Research Chair at St. Thomas University in Fredericton.
The NHL has proven to be remarkably forgiving when it's in its own business interests to do so.
McLeod, Hart, Dubé, and Foote can get picked up by any team. The Ottawa Senators would have to sign Formenton by December 1st for him to play this season, although he joined a Swiss team last week. Richard McLaren teaches sports law at London's Western University.
The clubs will need to consider impacts on their fan base and sponsors.
But if the player is still good enough, some teams may decide the risk is worth it. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And finally for us, there's a new development in the case of a teen who was poisoned while at work. The story was first brought to light by CBC's Go Public. After that report, police laid criminal charges against a former store manager at a Saskatchewan co-op. But the boy's family says one charge isn't enough. Their son continues to struggle almost 2 years later. Rosa Marcatelli has more.
Will Kratenko was just 14 years old when he suffered severe carbon monoxide poisoning while working at a co-op grocery store in Kenora, Saskatchewan. His mother, Kelly, says he still suffers from debilitating health problems.
He'll go 4 to 5 weeks good, and then something just creeps up and he just starts his episodes all over again.
In October 2023, Will was told to clean an enclosed room in the meat department using a gas-powered pressure washer meant for outdoor use. He was rushed to hospital in Saskatchewan and then transferred to Alberta for treatment in a hyperbaric chamber. Now, RCMP have charged a former store manager, Kyle Kaiser, with criminal negligence causing bodily harm. The family calls it a start.
He's not the only one that should have accountability.
Go Public asked the franchise owner for comment, but hasn't heard back. The family first reached out to Go Public a year after the incident. They were frustrated that Saskatchewan Occupational Health and Safety ordered the store to make changes but imposed no fines. That's despite another teen worker using the same equipment also getting sick just 1 day before Will. Worker advocate Sean Tucker says charges like this are unheard of in Saskatchewan.
I hope at the end of the day that employers take notice, and I hope we never have another case like this again.
Kyle Keisner's next court date is October 2nd in Kenora. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
That's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, and you're with Information Radio on the Morning Show. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is CBC. Mostly cloudy, 17 degrees in Winnipeg today. We are actually watching the city of Steinbach, though, this morning. You're expecting more rain, and you don't need it. Last night around 12:30, huge dump of rain in a system that lasted about 2 hours. It left streets underwater, and it left staff and volunteers at the Steinbach Area Animal Rescue scrambling to move their animals. We're going to talk to them momentarily. We've also been hearing from homeowners with flooded basements in that city as well. So the cleanup today. Also, this hour on the program, our continuing conversations about bail reform. We are going to be talking to a defense attorney this hour. Many Manitobans are demanding urgent federal action on bail reform and policing. And after several instances of people committing crimes while on bail in Manitoba, criminal defense lawyer says that we don't need all reforms to the law, but we do need reforms to the supports and better bail plans so that people can get the supports they need, so they don't breach bail. So she's going to share her perspective. That is coming up at 7:40. We've had a series of conversations on it this week. So if we hope you can join us for that at 7:40 this morning. And also, we point you to our CBC Listen app where you can hear the other conversations we've had, including with one of the top judges yesterday. Okay, let's go to not Heather Wells, filling in for Heather Wells. Let's go to Lauren Donnelly now. She is here with developing news. What's going on now?
Good morning, Marcy. Some residents of Steinbach, as you mentioned, are trying to clean up today after flooding last night. It was caused by heavy rain from a line of thunderstorms that brought 103 millimeters of water to the city over a span of 4 hours. CBC News reporter Megan Ketchison will be here at 7:30 with the latest on that story. She's been speaking to folks about what they're seeing. And criticism for the premier after the Port of Churchill was omitted from the list of the first 5 major federal infrastructure projects. Opposition leader Abi Khan says other provinces did more work to prepare and already consulted with Indigenous groups affected by projects. We'll have all that and more coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to Abby Adeyemi, who's got our Friday forecast.
Friday forecast, Marcy, it's going to stay warm and humid across board. We'll see a few showers while the north will be enjoying some sunshine today. Comfortable conditions I see across the regions. Winnipeg right now, 17 degrees, cloudy outside. The skies will begin to clear as we get into the morning for some sunshine. We warm up to 24 with the humidity factored in. It will feel close to about 31 degrees. Across the south, we're seeing temperatures in the upper teens warming up to 25, while up north, the powerful influence Thompson, we're looking at sunny skies, highs between 22 and 26. Churchill stays cooler, highs near 20 degrees, some drizzle earlier. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at 17 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
And now into our morning commute with Corey Funk.
Yeah, so far, haven't heard of any major issues here in Winnipeg. Of course, if you're in Steinbach, you may see some wet roads still from that heavy rain overnight. I'd love to get some updates from folks who are out there on the roads of what they've seen so far, how tough it might be to get around on there or the highways. You can give me a call and I'll let folks know. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, at 7:14, let's get you out to Steinbach now. As Lauren just mentioned, some of the numbers of rainfall. We had 103. Steinbach had 103 millimeters of rain over 24 hours. Last year, 156 millimeters of rain over a few days in a system last September, a year ago. That at the time was called a once in 130-year flood. We had a city councillor on the show to start Information Radio right after 6 this morning that talked about the fact that they are trying to improve some things around the city's sewer system and such. He does believe now, though, that this year they're still getting a handle this morning, rather, on how many people have been affected by this. We know there has been some basement flooding because that city councillor and the mayor have both confirmed that they actually were fighting back water in their basements. Well, staff and volunteers at the Steinbach Area Animal Rescue are also scrambled to get animals and supplies to safety last night after the city was hit by this rain. Their basement flooded also. Graham Pollock's vice president and up with us this morning. Hi there.
Good morning.
Take me back to last night. We heard this started around 12:30. What's tell us through your perspective, when this really started to be, we're in trouble.
Well, I was in bed sleeping at 12:30, quite honestly, and I guess our president, Michelle Neufeld, had been down at the building around midnight or just after that, and had seen the water coming from the creek at the very back of our property. There's a creek that kind of flows, and it acts as drainage as well. It takes the water through kind of a sewer area that goes underneath the Keating Road, which is the road that runs right in front of us. And she noticed the water was coming across the property, like coming across the yard, but really didn't think that much of it other than, like it would be nice for the rain to stop. But then one of her other volunteers went in to kind of help her with doing some things. And she went home, the volunteer stayed, and then called me at 2:30 this morning and said, our basement is flooding. The water's coming in the window wells. So that's the difference for us, for a lot of people, where the water for a lot of people is coming up through the sump pump system or the sewer system or whatever in their homes. But for us, it's overland flooding. It comes from the back creek, and it floods over the property and comes in the window wells of the facility and floods our basement. And I heard you talking about last year in September. It's almost a year to the week, I would think, that it happened to us. And it's very frustrating. Last year we had about 2.5 feet of water in the basement, and we're able to salvage some things. This time, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to salvage anything in the basement because there's probably 6 feet of water in there now, and there's no sign of the water going down at all around the property yet. So we can't really pump anything because there's nowhere to pump it.
So last year, Graham, was it also overland flooding coming through the windows? I know you had to pay a $25,000 deductible for insurance at that time. You said, who knows now with 6 feet, but this was last year through the windows as well?
Yes. Yeah. And it's a brand new building. We moved in June 2024, and you do everything according to the heights and elevations that the city engineers give you for doing your landscaping and everything else in the property, and so you hope that nothing is going to happen like this. But when you get this much water, I guess it's difficult to handle it. You can't control Mother Nature, but we're a not-for-profit, and to write a check for $25,000 just to cover our deductible is a big hit for us, and now we've got to do that a second time in a year's time. I mean, that's $50,000 we'll have had to spend on this. So it's very frustrating. It's disheartening. It's use all the adjectives you want to use.
Yeah.
I don't know what we can do to mitigate it anymore. Like
but you got to do something from what it sounds like.
We got to do something.
Let me ask you about the animals. I mean, so you paint this picture for us, 6 feet of water in the basement, 2:30 in the morning, how did the flooding impact the rescue, and did you have to move some animals? I don't even know what kind of animals you have in there. So tell us a bit about it.
We're in the process right now of, we reached out about, a couple hours ago, I think, Tamara, one of our volunteers, reached out to our volunteer foster chat and said, this is what's happened, and if any of you are available to take a couple of our cats, then that would be great. So we've got some fosters coming in to take a couple of the cats that are in the building. We have no dogs in the building right now, fortunately, but we've got 22 cats and kittens in the building right now. So we're in the process of moving them out into foster homes, and and once they're out, then I guess it's a matter of getting fans going and getting pumps going and trying to get the basement pumped out.
So the basement you're talking about, those cats and such, would they have been on upper floors? Like there was no threat there last night where you were scrambling to get the animals up out of water or anything? Eh?
No. Although we were watching the stairwell when the water was rising in the basement, and we were watching the stairwell to see how quickly it was coming up the stairwell from the basement, because we've still got some grace room right now. So the rain stopped. It's going to start to recede here, I'm sure. So it's not going to threaten the main floor, but all of our animals are on the main floor. So we're fortunate, I guess, that it's not going to affect them in that way.
Got it. So just last, Graham, what kind of help do you need in the coming hours today? You mentioned a bit about fosters. It sounds like you have that under control, but what do you need in the coming hours and days here?
Well, I think once we can start pumping and getting the basement pumped out and getting in there, then we're going to need some of our volunteers or people from the community to come and maybe give us a hand to get stuff out of the basement and start to take inventory of what all is there and that kind of thing. And then obviously we're a not-for-profit that relies solely on donations and charitable gifts. We get no grants. We get nothing like that from the government or anything. So obviously we need to come up with $25,000 to pay a deductible because our budget doesn't cut it for a $25,000 hit, honestly. So I mean, obviously any little bit of help we can get monetarily is going to help us for sure. It doesn't matter if it's a $5 donation or a $100 donation. It's going to all help us.
Well, good luck the rest of the day here, and thank you very much for sharing with us what happened live on CBC this morning. What happened with your animal rescue in Steinbach last night, Graham? Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much.
That is Graham Pollock, Vice President of the Steinbach and Area Animal Rescue, on live with us on CBC. It's located on Keating Road in Steinbach. We understand that Steinbach, the city, and mostly on the north side, affected last night by the heavy rain that came down fast.
School's back, and so is the CBC Music Class Challenge, celebrating its 10th anniversary. Powered by Music Counts. Music educators across the country pick a song from our list, create a cover version, and upload a video of your class performing the cover. Amazing prizes are up for grabs, including $30,000 worth of new musical instruments. Check out all the details and register now at cbc.ca/musicclass.
Well, speaking of music, we have a tune this morning from multi-award winning singer-songwriter Jade Turner from her third studio album. The album's called Breathe, and this is the title track.
Starting to drown, losing myself, follow it down, I'm feeling it now, things I never say out loud are sounding pretty loud right now. I gotta find my way out now, slowly sinking down into that sound. If I'm going down when no one's around, will I pull me out? I'm crying for help. Things I never say out loud are sounding pretty loud right now. I've gotta find my way out now, slowly sinking down into that sound. Breathe in slowly, feel your
Let's breathe. From Jade Turner from Mississippi Cree Nation. Her album, by the way, the same name, is out now. Let's turn our attention to something very different. We have morning sports coming up. We're going to start with hockey. You might have heard this a bit on World Report, but here with more details on a controversial decision made by the NHL. Scott Reguera is in with his report. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Yes, the 5 players acquitted in the 2018 London, Ontario sexual assault trial will be eligible to return to the league. Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Alex Formenton, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod can sign contracts starting October 15th, and they can resume play on December the 1st. The NHL announced the decision just over a month after a judge found the former Canadian World Junior players not guilty. Among those not pleased with the decision is safe sport advocate Alison Forsyth.
It's not okay that we look at this and go in sport like, oh, now it's no big deal. They're going to go back to play. I do not want my children to look at this, as they will. They're old enough now, and think that there isn't an issue in hockey and in sport around maltreatment and sexual violence and consent, because there is. And I want my children to know that they need to act in a way that is not this, and they need to shift the culture, because this is sending a message that the NHL doesn't really care.
It'll be interesting, Marcy, to see whether an NHL team will risk the public backlash and sign one of these players. On the basis of talent alone, they all have something to offer. Carter Hart, for example, is an Edmonton native, and The Athletic is among those linking him with the goaltending challenged Oilers. That would be a bold move, to say the least. Major League Baseball, remember, went through a similar process with star pitcher Trevor Bauer a few years ago. He was suspended for violating the league's domestic violence policy following sexual assault allegations, but was never charged with a crime. Still, MLB teams have avoided signing Bauer because of, as Sports Illustrated's put it, a potential PR nightmare. Bauer's now plying his trade in Japan, so we'll have to see what happens when it comes to these players possibly returning to the NHL.
Let's go to the CFL. The Bombers face a familiar foe tonight.
Yes, they do. We mentioned this briefly yesterday, Marcy. This evening's game against the Hamilton Tiger Cats will be the Bombers' first look at Kenny Lawler since he left for the Hammer. Lawler, who was part of both Grey Cup winning teams, is having a great season with the Ticats. He's second in the league in total receiving yards. He is leading the league when it comes to touchdown receptions. But he's not the only former Bomber in the receiving corps for Hamilton. Drew Wolotarski also left for Hamilton in the offseason. Wolotarski won't be in the lineup tonight. The Ticats have been managing his usage as he comes back from a hamstring ailment. Chris Streveler, who will be starting for the injured Zach Collaros, was asked if he's worried about his former receivers giving scouting reports to Hamilton's defense.
I don't know. I mean, everyone's seen me play football, so everyone knows who I am. I was literally talking to Wally on the way over here, so I'm going to see him tonight. So I'll probably give him a hard time about that and just see what he's been saying. So, it's such a small league. Everyone knows everyone. Again, that's where it comes down to just you have a game plan every week of how you want to attack a team and just going out and executing that.
That's Chris Streveler, who, as I mentioned, will start tonight. Kickoff, 6 o'clock.
Finally, there's also flag football going on today you want to talk about.
Yeah, Canada's men's team faces Guatemala this morning in Brazil. Former Bombers coach Paul LaPolice is in charge of the Canadian squad.
Try to Zoom once a week. We try to break down film as much as we can together. But some great stories of guys. We have guys who played college football. We've got guys who never played football at all in tackle world. They're just flag football players, and they are great players. We have a doctor. Emil, one of our halfbacks, is a physician. he's a big, athletic defensive back, but he's also a doctor, so it's pretty cool.
This Canadian team beat the U.S., the Americans suffering their first loss in 8 years back in June. Canada would love to replicate that success at the LA Olympics. Right now, they're focused on beating Guatemala this morning.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. Have a great weekend.
You too.
That is Scott Reguera with CBC Sports. Coming up, could you pull a jet plane across a tarmac with 20 of your friends and colleagues for charity? Some Manitobans are going to do exactly that today. We'll find out about that after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Lauren Donnelly in Winnipeg at 7:30. It's 17 degrees, mostly cloudy at the airport, becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with a high of 24 degrees. Well, people in Steinbach are waking up to soggy basements this morning after a deluge overnight. The CBC's Megan Ketchison has been talking to people who are assessing the damage this morning. Megan?
Well, it was a downpour that flooded streets and basements overnight in Steinbach. Environment Canada says in only 4 hours, 103 millimeters of rain fell. That's overwhelming the sewer system and causing overland flooding. I was speaking with Graham Pollock. He's the vice president of the Steinbach and Area Animal Rescue. Pollock was woken up by an alarm at 2:30 this morning. He rushed to the shelter that was surrounded by water, and there was nearly 2 meters of water in the basement.
Pumping is not really an option because there's nowhere for the water to go. Like, it's still laying we're kind of on an island. The building is sitting there and it's completely surrounded by water.
Now, Pollock says in the basement there were all the supplies such as cat food and kitty litter. Plus, they were getting ready for a fundraiser garage sale and all the donated items were in the basement. Now, he says no animals are in the basement, but there are 22 cats on the main floor. They're now reaching out to their foster families to find places for cats to stay while they dry out the building. And if you remember last year, almost to the day, Steinbach had another downpour and that shelter was flooded too. But he says this time is much worse. And Pollock says the nonprofit has insurance, but they have a $25,000 deductible they'll have to pay again. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks, Megan. A Winnipeg mother is worried her son living with epilepsy might have to wait longer to see a specialist. It comes after the second seizure specialist left Manitoba's largest hospital in the last year. Shared Health says there are still 2 epilepsy doctors at the Health Sciences Centre, but Julie Western is concerned the departures from HSC could mean delayed treatment for her son.
We've had 4 neurologists now since we've started, and you build up a good relationship with them and then they leave a few years later, and then you have a new one come in and have to get to know your case all over again. So it is frustrating and heartbreaking that these doctors aren't wanting to stay in Winnipeg.
Shared Health says it has hired a new seizure specialist, but the doctor won't start working until next year. A petition to stop the construction of a road in a North Kildonan park has garnered over 500 signatures. Those who use the dog park say the new road would disrupt their access to it. CBC's Felicia Adams spoke with dog owners who have used the park for years.
Everybody I've talked to just think it's kind of heavy-handed, this idea of the road. It's intrusive.
Tom Moody is concerned. While he agrees with the city's plan to revitalize Kilkona Park, it would also mean the off-leash area would be fenced off.
Well, it's going to cut off a big portion of the park that we're used to. It's going to be a portion cut off that's part of the most beautiful part of the park.
Jeff Rawadi is the city councillor for the area.
The road's going to be on this side of the landfill, but it's going to go over around that way.
He says the plan to revitalize the park will cost just over $6 million and start in 2026.
This new North Road will allow the community to come and drive up to an area by a beautiful lake and have a Sunday picnic.
Community consultation for the project happened in 2014. Moody would like to see another round before anything happens. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Finally, some residents of South St. Vital are worried a proposed housing development could threaten their well water. A&S Homes wants to subdivide an area known as Damon Farm into 23 lots. That plan was approved by the Riel Community Committee last week, despite a report by city staff recommending it be rejected due to concerns raised in a 2004 hydrogeological study. The area doesn't connect to city water services, so many people rely on wells, but each new well increases the salinity of the underground aquifer. Longtime resident Mildred Smallwood says her well water is already unsafe to drink.
It would dissolve aluminum. I had an aluminum kettle, and before I knew it, it was leaking.
Representatives for the developer say a caveat would be put on all land titles to forbid new wells. The proposal must still get through multiple committees before facing a final vote at City Council. That is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, thanks very much, Lauren.
Thanks, Marcy.
With a quick look at our regional forecast, here's Abby.
A mix of sun and clouds expected today. The south will stay warm and humid with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, while the north stays mostly sunny. We're going to see temperatures warm up to 25, 26 in most of the regions. Right now, we're seeing temperatures between 5 in Tudor Lake and, of course, 17, 18 in Winnipeg area.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Good thing for Winnipeg is with sun and cloud this afternoon, we don't have rain in our forecast. That'll be good for an event we're about to hear about today. First, though, let's check what's going on the morning commute. Corey.
Yes, so far I actually haven't heard of any major issues out there this morning, but if you do see something, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, especially if you are in Steinbach and you want to tell me about a flooded road or anything like that. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
We're also getting more comments, Corey, so I'll get you to look at my Facebook page while I'm in this interview because a whole bunch more people have just gotten up and they're sending us some comments and pictures out of Steinbach.
All right, I'll have a look.
So much rain there last night, as we heard in the news. All right, let's turn our attention to this event I was alluding to today. How many people does it take to pull a plane across a tarmac? It's something that some people are going to find out in a few hours from now. The United Way Winnipeg is back with their annual plane pull fundraiser that they actually haven't been able to hold for a couple of years, but it's back today at the Red River College, Red River Polytech, Notre Dame campus this morning. JP Perrin is the 2025 United Way Winnipeg Volunteer Campaign Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you guys haven't had this since 2019. What's it feel to have it back?
We're beyond excited. We're beyond excited that it's a sellout and 80 companies from across Winnipeg are going to come together to pull for community and just have an amazing time together.
It's such a fun event. So what kind of planes do you guys pull? I know you've been involved in pulling and you're going to be helping today too.
That's correct. So this year, teams will pull either a Canadair water bomber named a Scooper, by the way, which weighs 27,000 pounds, if you're wondering.
Crazy, yeah.
Or a Dash 8 named Gonzo. Each of these planes have a name, and it weighs 35,000 pounds. So it's going to be a Herculean effort to move this plane.
So over the years, and you've done this, I understand that this is a real deal, obviously. Sometimes they don't budge, right?
That's correct. But if, I guess as the saying goes, if we all lean in together, these teams of 20 people, they will move the plane because the record is about 7 seconds, and it's quite inspiring to watch.
I bet. Have you been on any of those teams when it has moved? Or have you been on the teams that tried as you could, you just couldn't get it to go?
Well, thankfully, we've always been able to move the plane.
Okay.
And that's obviously because people realize, wow, let's get past the inertia. And once you do, wow, it goes really fast.
What does it feel like? Do you actually train for this? I'm wondering, I'm trying to see if your guns are flexing and getting ready to go today.
Well, I had a balanced breakfast, and I hope everybody else did.
The whole point of this, obviously, is to talk about, how many people it takes to lean in together to help community as well. Tell us a bit more about how significant this is to highlight what the work you guys do with the United Way.
1 in 3 Winnipeggers will need and rely and get the help they require from one of the 125 agencies who do amazing work in the community for Winnipeggers all over. And so this event is our annual kickoff, and we couldn't be prouder because this year represents the 60th anniversary of United Way being here for Winnipeggers. And so we're beyond delighted that Plane Pull is back.
How much do you hope to raise with the event?
So this year, we are asking people to come out to Plane Pull, to be together, to be united, to celebrate, and to create momentum for this 60th anniversary. We will be, last year, as a community, we raised over $22.6 million for those in need. And this year, as we know in the community, the need is even greater. And so we will once again be setting our sights for a more inspiring objective to be there for all Winnipeggers as part of the 60th.
What do you want to remind people about the work that United Way does, and where can they read more online about the work that you do? Because you guys, affect so many different areas and aspects of what's happening in our community for those who are most vulnerable.
You're absolutely correct. People can always go to unitedwaywinnipeg.ca and learn more about all the different agencies that we support and the incredible work that they do in the community.
All right. Well, we'll point people there. Enjoy the event today, JP. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having us. It's so appreciated.
So that was the 2025 United Way Winnipeg Volunteer Campaign Chair, JP Perron. That event today, the plane pull, is back. It's at the Red River Polytech Notre Dame campus. It starts just before 10 o'clock. It is also open to the public. So as JP said, part of this is also to get people to come together to think about 60 years of the United Way in our community, and also to cheer on your favorite team with all of those different companies and individuals involved. Time right now is 7:41. So we've been mentioning the weather, mostly cloudy in Winnipeg, 17 degrees. I also want to mention what is coming up after 8 o'clock here on Information Radio. So still ahead on the show, it is an app that you install on your phone that can track people. But is that app doing more than meets the eye? We're going to talk with a cybersecurity expert about how our information and especially our location data apps are being used for consumer-based ad targeting. So it's not just the location apps, but every time we put something on our phone, there's all these rules that pop up. And I know I'm guilty of this. Sometimes you just so quickly say, accept all the terms. What's actually happening with our privacy? And also, what is location monitoring? How does that affect our social networks and our interactions with each other as human beings? So an interesting conversation coming up here about cybersecurity. That's after 8 o'clock right here on Information Radio. Right now, though, speaking of ongoing conversations, let's turn our attention to bail reform. We've been continuing to talk about it on the show, especially this week. In a moment, we will hear the perspective of a criminal defense attorney on this. But here are the most recent Manitoba cases that have us leaning into it. The alleged killer in Hollow Water was out on bail after being charged with assault with a weapon. 2 of the 4 teens who allegedly committed that armed robbery at Unicity Walmart in Winnipeg last week were out on bail as well. And this week, a man accused of drunk driving and killing a young woman walked out of a treatment facility while on bail. Yesterday, we spoke with Chief Judge for the Provincial Court, Ryan Ralston.
On an annual basis in Manitoba, the police are laying roughly about 40,000 charges against various people across the province. So most of those people are getting bail. And in fact, most of those people get through their whole process without breaching their bail conditions and having charges laid against them. So by the time cases get to us, they're usually more complex in terms of the legal decisions being made, and usually there are defense counsel involved that are putting together bail plans that are to be considered by the judge. You know, if we have somebody who has, let's say, substance abuse issues, their offending in the past seems to be tied to substance abuse. The allegations seem to be related to substance abuse. Logically speaking, if we can ensure that that person is not using substances, then there's no reason why they can't be in the community, as long as they can stay sober. Now, that's a very complex issue, and it's really about whether or not there is a viable plan that offers the support that they need and can contain them in their environment to make sure that they're not falling off the rails.
That is Chief Judge for the Provincial Court, Ryan Ralston. He was here in studio yesterday. Now, Zilla Jones has been advocating for bail reform for years and says that recent cases making headlines in Manitoba, though, of people breaching bail, those ones I cited, are, quote, a few sensationalized instances, end quote. Jones is a local criminal defense attorney. I spoke to her yesterday after the show. So why do you say that these cases really shouldn't be held up as maybe an example?
Because they're exceptional just by definition, both in what happened, that these are very sensational, tragic, horrible things that have happened, but this is not the norm of what the criminal justice system deals with every day. And so they shouldn't be used as examples for what is happening in the criminal justice system every day.
What examples should we look to for examples? Like, how common is it for your clients to breach conditions of their bail?
So that, I think, is what sort of what Judge Wilson was alluding to, Chief Judge Wilson, that, to take it back a little bit further, the criminal justice system, generally the people we're seeing in this system are the poor, racialized, Indigenous people, newcomers, people with substance abuse issues, people with mental health issues, people who struggle with numerous things in their life, sometimes all of those things. People who've been victimized in the past by others. And so these are people that are coming to the criminal justice system often for crimes that stem from poverty and trauma. And with bail, we are asking people to provide the kind of structure and security in their lives that they've never had in their lives. So often people are asked to provide a confirmed address. So you can see how that might be a problem for somebody who is unhoused or precariously housed or couch surfing or whatever the case may be. And now they have to provide an address that they are going to be at for months or years, that the police can come anytime and check and see if they're there. And not everybody can provide that. They are being asked not to consume alcohol or drugs when they may have an addiction that's been long-standing, that they've had for many years, and there's no rehab beds available. So many times people are set up to fail. And so, yes, you will see those administration of justice offenses where somebody is picked up by the police because they see them somewhere, they ask them where they're living, they tell them, they look it up, and it's not the court-ordered address, so that's a breach. They may have a curfew, but they don't have a place to live, so they are therefore out on the streets breaching the curfew. They may be drinking when they're not supposed to drink. So these types of breaches, they are very common, and I will often see those bringing people back into custody.
I think it's interesting because for cases where the accused are youth, like the ones this week we highlighted, what is it like for them, like your young clients, to try and follow the bail conditions they're given? I understand sometimes you even get involved in things like transportation, which can be a breach of bail.
Mm-hmm. For young people, I mean, it's the same thing, that they also, the ones who are coming to the criminal justice system overwhelmingly are youth from the system, from the foster care system, and overwhelmingly Indigenous or racialized. And they haven't had that structure and support, and they don't have those loving parents that make sure that, you know, for those of us that are parents, making sure kids get up every day and go to school and do their homework and have a lunch and do what they're supposed to do and be where they're supposed to be. That's almost a full-time job for any parent, right? Just to get your kids where they need to be. And these are kids that have never had somebody that cared about them enough to do that. They've probably been shunted around from home to home. And then they get a judge telling them that you have to have a curfew, you have to be here, you have to do this. And there's no one to remind them of this. And they're 13, 14, 15 years old. So, yeah, they struggle with those conditions often.
You mentioned the addiction piece, and so did Judge Rolston. If an accused struggles with an addiction and maybe a condition of bail or in the bail plan, it's, as you said, to stay sober. How realistic is that given resources in Manitoba? You spoke to rehab beds, but what other things would we need in the system to make that a more realistic request in your view?
It's not realistic at all. I know there have been discussions where I believe Manitoba judges were at one point told to be less demanding of conditions like that, and they really should only be requesting it when it's absolutely necessary for protection of the public, because there was a time when those conditions were getting slapped on sort of without any scrutiny or without any differentiation. It was just something that was a blanket condition people were getting, and then for a while we pulled back from it, and it seems that it's coming back into vogue to have these abstain clauses. And yes, there's a number of barriers that make it difficult. So the lack of ability of rehabilitation, the lack of ability for people to get into counseling, trauma counseling, grief counseling. A lot of times the addiction is coming from that. I've had many clients who their addiction gets worse after they lose a child or they have some kind of horrible tragedy. One guy had witnessed a suicide, and that caused him to spiral into drug use. Sometimes people become addicted when they're living on the streets. They weren't addicted before. They lose their housing. They're on the streets. They start using just because it's part of the lifestyle. It helps get them through. I know people that say they take meth so they can stay up at night because they don't have a bed and they don't want to be victimized sleeping on a bench or something, so they take meth. So there are all these other challenges that lead to addiction. Of course, we know trauma is a big reason. We have a lot of clients in the criminal justice system who have trauma that relates back to residential schools or to other forms of racism and colonialism and prejudice. And there are not the resources to support people through navigating these traumas. And so they turn to addictions. And when there isn't the support to get off the substance you're addicted to, then it's very hard not to use it.
So we also heard Judge Ralston say many of the supports that you say are lacking, whether it's people, whether it's treatment facilities, whether it's caseworkers to follow up, and then these breaches of bail can become more common in your view and in your work. The judge also said that many of the supports are still included in bail plans to try and help people. So I wonder, what does an effective bail plan look like right now in this province, given the realities you're bringing to the forefront?
Again, it's just not having enough of them. So sometimes, and I'm assuming that Chief Justice Rolston is referring to this, that there are times when people are supported by an agency like the John Howard Society of Manitoba. I'm on the board of that agency, or Elizabeth Fry if they're female, or there is there are various Behavioral Health Foundation, or the new Scott Oak Center, or some of those types of places. So sometimes somebody does have support from those types of organizations. There's many Indigenous-based organizations that provide support as well. And certainly there are some clients who will be able to connect with, StreetLinks being another one, so people can connect with these agencies, and sometimes they will provide housing, they will provide caseworkers, they will check in on people.
But you just need more.
Courses. We need more. They can't take all the people. They don't take certain charges.
So if I may, then what's the point of a bail plan? If what you're saying is true, if it's not working, then we also are adding issues in the system, because we still have people appearing, that things are well considered, there's paperwork, they get to that stage, and the bail plan's in place, and we don't have all these things to sort of honor it. So what's the point of it then in this province, and where would you like to see us go from here?
Good question. I mean, one other thing they brought in recently was the electronic monitoring. I don't know if the judge talked about that, but that's where you could actually have an ankle monitor on a client that's not supposed to be around a certain person or be in a certain place, and it alerts authorities if they go into that area. So that's been a device that, again, more people want them than they're available, and not everybody qualifies for it. So the point of a bail plan, I mean, if you do have those supports in place, if you're able to connect with an agency, if you have a surety, which is a person who is in the community that basically pledges an amount of money to supervise you and keep you out of trouble, and if you get into trouble, they may be on the hook for some of that money. And so if they have somebody stepping up that can do that, if they have somebody who can make a cash deposit for them, if they have somebody who can get them to court, keep them out of trouble, then that is their bail plan. And for some people, the bail plan can work really well if you have those supports, and then the client is able to follow those conditions. That we don't hear from them, and there are many people where that will happen. But so I mean, the point of a bail plan is to keep the public safe, to make sure that the client appears for court, and that's what it's supposed to do. But there are times when, I guess, in the balance of a bail, you have to balance the potential risk with their right, because bail is a right. It's in the Constitution that reasonable bail is a right. And so you have to balance the person's right to be on bail, to be innocent until proven guilty. And people are in a much better position to fight their charges when they're out of custody. And so to give them that opportunity versus the risk to the public and to the system.
Yeah.
And when that risk is wrongly assessed, so we see that often for Black accused, Indigenous accused, the risk is overstated. The type of offense they're in does not pose the risk that they're said to have. The bail plan isn't sufficient according to the court because the risk is overstated. Now they're denied bail. So that is the problem. Do they have to have all these conditions for the offense they're in the first place?
Given your perspective, what concerns you about those that share a completely different perspective, that say we have to figure out a way to have a system so people don't reoffend? And I do respect what you said about the cases this weekend and you calling them exceptions, but there's still cases that affect people's lives. So I wonder how you think that the system can be improved to make the public safer.
I mean, the reality is that none of us are ever going to be 100% safe from violent crime. We are human beings, and the freedoms we would have to give up to even try to accomplish that, which we still wouldn't accomplish, would make our society not a very pleasant place. So yes, you could detain every single person in charge of a crime, and then you wouldn't get anybody reoffending. But we've accepted that that would be wrong. It would also be extremely expensive, and we don't have the resources. And so there is a risk that we are inherently asked to bear. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to sound callous, because I know these things that happen are terrible. I'm not trying to minimize them or say they should have happened or, anything like that. But I mean, I think that, and I don't know the circumstance of those individuals, so I can't really comment on, the person in Hollow Water, like what their circumstances were. But I think that in general, having more support for people on bail. So if this person was going through some kind of crisis, if this person was needing help, if they were crying out for help in some way, if they were using something problematic, that they would have had a place to go where they could talk that through, where they could get support for that. I don't know if that was available. I don't know if it's available in that community. So, I mean, that is another piece of this, right? That was a First Nations community. And often I do have clients from First Nations communities, and they want to go back there because that's their home and that is where their family and the support are, but they don't necessarily have the same resources the city has to treat issues. And so you're often balancing someone who could potentially stay in Winnipeg and have access to rehab and counselors, but none of their loved ones are there. Maybe they have children. So you're sometimes sending people back to communities that are under-resourced. And so that may have been a factor. So I think obviously having more resources available to remote and First Nations communities as well as in the city is really important, and to have that equitably available to the clients.
As the judge said, a complex issue. We thank you for your perspective and weighing in.
Thank you very much.
That was Zilla Jones with us, criminal defense lawyer and author. I spoke with her yesterday after the show. We've had a series of conversations this week on Information Radio about bail reform. It is 4 minutes now to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. It is school day number 3 across Manitoba. Here we are Friday, September the 12th. And in a moment, we're going to have news headlines from Lauren Donnelly. I do want to point you to my Facebook page, my Marcy Marcusa page, which acts as a show page during the show. We posted photos from Christopher Garreau, a reporter out of Steinbach last night, with all that water that came in, that rain that came down quickly. What's interesting in the comment thread now is Manitobans talking to each other about flooding. And in this province, we know flooding and we know overland flooding as well. So some of the comments coming in are talking about what can be done. We heard from the animal rescue, they said, we don't know what to do. We tried to build things up after last year. We don't know how much more we can do. Ray Gibson writing into some of the things that happened around Highway 75 and what they did to mitigate some of the overland issues in that area. And also writing about St. Laurent, because 2011 St. Laurent affected, of course, by flooding as well. And I know it wasn't just that year. There's been many years. So there's various things that you can do when you look at this. Steinbach also had flooding from sewer system backup in basements as well. The rain came so fast yesterday and some pumps not keeping up. So lots of issues, Mother Nature not being kind to us this year. We go from wildfires to a morning like this. Well, let's get more details now in our morning news. Lauren Donnelly has joined us with headlines now. Good morning.
Good morning. If you're a parent, you're being asked to check your kid's immunization record now that school's in. Well, since the start of the year, measles has landed 13 in hospital, putting 2 in the ICU. We'll hear what public health officials are doing to slow the spread of that disease. And as you mentioned, Marcy, people in Steinbach are waking up to soggy basements this morning after a deluge overnight. Megan Ketchison is reporting on that live, speaking to folks in Steinbach about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. We'll have the latest on that story coming up after World Report.
All right. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
So our confirmed amounts of rain, 103 millimeters in about 4 hours. Corey was looking at this earlier. Last year, that huge system that dumped on Steinbach almost exactly to the same date. It was last September 16th and 17th, and here we are on the 12th. So last year, Steinbach got what they called a once in 130-year flood. That was 156 millimeters, so little more rain, but it did fall over a couple of days. So Steinbach mopping up that city in southeastern Manitoba. Here in Winnipeg today, high 24, mix of sun and cloud. We don't have rain in our forecast. On the morning commute, it's been pretty good, actually. Haven't had any calls about anything major, but if you need to pass something along, especially heading up to this busy 8 o'clock hour, please give us a call. The commuter line is 788-3093 at CBC. Well, after 8 o'clock, despite popular belief, your location sharing services on your phone doesn't magically turn off once you stop using GPS. Our location keeps being tracked, even when our phones are in our pockets. And that information is being collected and then sold by app developers. We're going to talk to a cybersecurity expert about how we can best protect ourselves and our data. Stay tuned. That's coming up after 8. Right now, though, it's World Report on 89.3 FM.
On cue. Saul Goodman, please sit.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Bob Odenkirk plays a small-town sheriff who discovers a big secret in his new film. Bob will tell you about being an action star in your 60s.
This doesn't make this even, because after all, you came to my house.
And how risk is a through line throughout his career.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current. with Matt Galloway.
A few years into students starting to use artificial intelligence, teachers are thinking more deeply about how it's changing the classroom and the lives of young people, the benefits, risks, and profound effects of AI on learning.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. We begin with a major development in the Charlie Kirk shooting.
I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him.
That's U.S. President Donald Trump breaking the news during an interview on Fox. He says a suspect is in police custody.
Essentially, somebody that was very close to him turned him in. Somebody that's close recognizes even a little tilt of the head, which nobody else would do. And somebody that was very close to him said, that's him. And essentially went to the father. The father convinced the son, this is it. And again, I'm always subject to be corrected, but I'm just giving you based on what I'm hearing.
The president says a pastor who is also involved in law enforcement helped with the capture. Trump says he expects the individual will be found guilty, and he hopes he gets the death penalty. The FBI has not officially commented. They will, however, provide an update later this hour. Turning to other news now, CBC News has learned new details about Prime Minister Mark Carney's plan to address anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. In recent years, Canada has seen shots fired at religious institutions. Mosques and synagogues have received bomb threats, and people say they're being harassed at their places of worship. The government is introducing new legislation to crack down on those crimes as early as next week. Ashley Burke has the exclusive details.
When our laws repeatedly fail to protect those basic rights, we need new laws.
While addressing MPs this week, Prime Minister Mark Carney signaled new legislation is coming to combat a rise in hate.
All Canadians must be able to get up, go to work, go to their church, temple, mosque, community center, and then come home and sleep soundly at night.
A source says as early as Tuesday, the government could propose new intimidation and obstruction offenses under the criminal code. That could make it illegal to intentionally and willfully obstruct people from accessing places of worship, schools, or community centers. Justice Minister and Attorney General Sean Fraser hinted at it yesterday.
Think of a synagogue, a mosque, a church, but also community centers, schools, or specific places that are designed specifically for a given community. We want to add criminal provisions that would prohibit the obstruction of those facilities and the intimidation of the people seeking to use them.
A source says the government also plans to propose a separate offense for anyone breaking the law while motivated by hatred. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The public service is being directed to review all current and planned federal contracts. Ottawa is looking for cost savings. The finance and procurement ministers want a detailed report within 45 days. A report from the government's procurement watchdog says the current contracting system needs fundamental change. Well, hundreds of South Korean workers who had been detained in a U.S. immigration raid are now back home. Under their charter plane landed in Seoul, where they were greeted by officials, including the South Korean president's chief of staff. More than 300 Koreans were working at a Hyundai plant in Georgia when it was raided by ICE last week. U.S. immigration officials claimed they had violated the terms of their visitor's visa. The incident caused political and public outrage in South Korea, a key U.S. ally. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says ICE operations are aimed at deporting those people he calls, quote, the worst of the worst. But as Mike Crawley reports, the data tells a different story.
You don't touch me! They've become a familiar sight on social media in the U.S. Videos like this showing masked, armed officers grabbing suspected illegal immigrants off the streets.
Stop it!
They're agents of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Since Donald Trump's inauguration, the federal agency has ramped up arrests at an unprecedented rate.
Trump campaigned on mass deportations, and he's really trying to execute that.
Kathleen Bush-Joseph is an attorney at the Migration Policy Institute in Washington. She says ICE's tactics appear less about targeting violent criminals than about boosting arrest numbers.
They're going to places where they think there will be lots of unauthorized immigrants and trying to arrest as many people as they can there.
Federal data from May through July show ICE made roughly triple the arrests of the same period last year. The data also show half of those detained have no criminal record or charges.
It's about numbers. It's never been about public safety.
Mike Fox is a legal fellow with the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank in Washington.
And the numbers are going to be a lot lower if you're actually focusing on the violent people that you should be focusing on. It's a lot easier to just stand outside a Home Depot and round people up.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
This administration is focused on the detention and deportation of illegal alien criminals.
Trump's team had floated the goal of deporting 1 million people each year. It's currently on pace for less than 1/3 of that number in 2025. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Some Brazilians are celebrating the conviction of their former president. People in the capital, Brasilia, cheering, singing, and setting off fireworks. Jair Bolsonaro has been convicted of plotting a coup and sentenced to more than 27 years in prison. In Washington, a different reaction. President Donald Trump called the conviction a terrible thing for Brazil.
I know him pretty well. I thought he was a good president of Brazil, and it's very surprising that that could happen. That's very much like they tried to do with me, but they didn't get away with it at all.
Earlier this year, Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Brazil in retaliation for Bolsonaro's prosecution. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is calling this verdict a witch hunt. He says the United States will respond accordingly. Prince Harry is on a surprise trip to Ukraine. He's in Kyiv to support wounded soldiers and meet the Ukrainian leaders. The prince's visit comes amid intense fighting between Russia and Ukraine, and as Crystal Gamansing reports, he's not the only British official in the region.
As Prince Harry arrived in Kyiv, the train sign at the platform read Super Royal Express. Disembarking, Harry smiled widely and embraced Olga Rudneva, the head of Superhumans, a medical facility helping thousands of maimed and wounded soldiers. Rudneva invited Harry back to Ukraine to meet with injured military personnel. Ahead of the visit, he told the Guardian newspaper, "We cannot stop the war, but what we can do is do everything we can to help the recovery process." His visit comes as Russia and Ukraine exchanged airstrikes. Ukraine's Sumy region, northeast of the capital, was struck overnight. At least 2 people were killed. Russia's military says its air defense system intercepted and destroyed 221 Ukrainian drones overnight, including 9 over the Moscow region. The UK, meanwhile, is turning up the pressure on Russia. 100 fresh sanctions are being applied on the Kremlin's source of revenues targeting the military sector and illicit shadow fleet carrying Russian oil. Yvette Cooper, the new UK Foreign Secretary, is also in Ukraine. She'll be meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to reinforce Britain's support for Ukraine. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Back here at home, former students of a Yukon elementary school could be entitled to a major payout. A tentative settlement has been reached in a class action lawsuit filed against the Yukon government. Gabriela Blanca has details.
For 15 years, excessive discipline was routine at Jack Holland Elementary School. Methods that should be used as a last resort were used on students under 13, like physical restraints and seclusion rooms. A class action lawsuit filed 3 years ago and the settlement agreement released yesterday brought it all to light.
It was never just about my kid. It was never just about me. There was hundreds of them.
Lindsay Amato was one of the parents who filed the suit and brought it to class action status. She said the process was challenging, but reaching a settlement gives her hope for the future.
This is something that you just can't fix. But we are hoping that with the settlement that our children will have a chance of success in their life.
The terms of the proposed settlement agreement promise compensation to former Jack Holland students who experienced holds and secures between 2007 and 2022. The minimum payout is $10,000 and the maximum is $1 million. Lawyer James Tucker says the lowest tier of compensation will have minimal reporting requirements.
The goal here was to minimize the traumatic effect that a person might experience if they went through a court-type process.
The Yukon government has also agreed to pay for claimant counseling and issue a formal acknowledgement and apology. That will happen after the settlement gets court approval later this year. Gabrielle Plonka, CBC News, Whitehorse.
And recapping our top story, U.S. President Donald Trump says a suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting is in police custody. The FBI will provide an update in about a half hour's time. You can watch it at cbcnews.ca. That's World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. Although maybe not a great morning around Steinbach and La Broquerie area today. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being with us this Friday on Information Radio on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Current temperature in Winnipeg, we're back up to being the hot spot in the province this hour. It is 18 degrees. Well, the rain came down hard and fast and caused overland flooding and basement flooding in residences and businesses in Steinbach last night. Started around 12:30 in the morning, 103 millimeters in 4 hours. Steinbach last year at this time also had a significant rainfall event. We're going to talk to someone in the neighboring community of La Broquerie, about 15 minutes outside Steinbach. As she says, the water still has not gone down, and we're talking about water that has stranded cars on the streets, up over the tires, and people last night wading through it to get to a drier ground. So stay tuned. We'll check in on La Broquerie in a moment. We also have a feature interview about cybersecurity and location apps. You might think that location sharing is off when it is actually still rolling in your pocket. So what are the concerns about that? Stay tuned. Let's go to Lauren Donnelly with headlines.
Good morning. The company that owns the Port of Churchill admits more work needs to be done to show Ottawa it's ready for a major expansion. The Northern Port is not on the list of the first 5 major federal infrastructure projects, and the opposition leader says its exclusion is a failure of the premiers. We'll hear more on that. And a proposed housing development in South St. Vital is facing opposition from residents and city staff. There are concerns about the pressure that could be put on the aquifer from which most homes in the area draw their water. We'll have more on those stories coming up in your next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Lauren.
Thanks.
My friend Abby, how's it going out there with weather?
Across board, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds from the north all the way down south. A few showers still being spotted in the southern part of the province. Once that clears, we're going to see cloudy conditions. Most of the regions in the south seeing temperatures between 13 and 18 degrees here in Winnipeg. The Parkland and the Westman region have foggy conditions at this time. That should give way to a mix of sun and clouds later in the evening. Up north, we're seeing 15 degrees in most of the regions. Churchill at 10 with light drizzle. That should clear later and we'll see highs close to 24 degrees. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at 18, warming to 24.
Well, unless you're trying to get around La Broquerie in that area where cars are, like I said, stranded because of water and not moving at all, you should be fine in traffic today. We haven't had any calls actually so far this Friday. But if you do spot a problem, use our CBC commuter line, 788-3093. Well, let's take you to La Broquerie. What I'm talking about, those images are coming from my next guest. Her name is Taylor Friesen. She lives in La Broquerie, about 15 minutes east of Steinbach, that community. She's sort of trapped in her house this morning. Hi there, Taylor. Good morning, Taylor.
Morning.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, we just lost you for a second.
Okay.
So tell me why you're trapped. I mean, how much water is outside your window right now still?
I know that it is about, at least right at the corner, it's about a waist deep length height of water. Right in front of our house is just kind of came up to our calf's knee kind of area. It's definitely deep.
Yeah. So last night I was mentioning that this started, we talked to folks in Steinbach early this morning, an area counselor, and the pet rescue shelter there we've been hearing about in the news. They had 2 kinds of flooding. They had basement flooding and then they had overland. Is your home okay?
Our home is good, yeah. I know there's people at the corner of our road that they are not okay. That's for sure. Their basement is for sure flooded, but we're okay.
In terms of, what this sounded like last night, did it wake you up or did you sleep through all of it and wake up to all this standing water?
Well, we were awake just about until just after midnight. Because it started around, I want to say 10:30, 11 is when it started lightning like crazy. And then it started pouring around, I want to say 11. And by midnight already, our ditch was flooded quite a bit. Today's garbage day. So we were watching garbage just float down the ditch.
And as far as those stranded cars, I don't know if, they were just people, I guess, must have opened their doors to get out, or were they climbing through windows? Do you know anything about what happened?
I don't know for sure. I know there's a lot of parked cars on the street, just like any day kind of thing. And so those cars are just parked there from like the day. There's at least two that are in the middle that I'm going to take it that they probably tried to drive through and think they could make it through.
Yeah, and they can't. The pictures that I'm seeing, and I have various shots of different things here. These are the ones from you and LaBroca. If people are watching on YouTube, you'll see this. I mean, I'm looking. I'm kind of squinting at this because it's a bit far away. But the water there seems to be covering the tires entirely on one of the cars.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. There's an SUV and a truck for sure that it comes up past the bumpers.
We tried to get your video up as well, so we're still attempting that. We'll get it up on our stream shortly. I know you sent us some video here. So what's your day going to look like? Are you somewhat stranded? I guess you're not going to be able to be getting out and driving.
Stranded.
Yeah.
I would definitely say I'm stranded. Yeah, I was supposed to work tonight, but I don't think I'm making it.
You sound like you're in good spirits. Have you talked to anybody yet outside of your house and in the wider community about what the plan is moving forward out your way?
I have not. No.
Yeah.
Not too sure what will happen. We've got a couple pumps going, but they're working overtime for sure.
Got it. So this is right around your house, you mean, the pumps?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Trying to keep yourself dry. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the image, and thank you for the images as well, and allowing CBC to share your photos out of LaBroquerie. What an incredible amount of rain.
Yep, for sure. Thank you.
All right, take care. That is live with us on CBC. Taylor Friesen weighing in from LaBroquerie with her photos and video and her story, essentially trapped in her home. The water hasn't gone down there really very much. And so LaBroquerie is about 15 minutes east of the city of Steinbach. Now, the city of Steinbach also similarly affected last night. It was mostly on, Main Street and the west side by Brant Road, where is in Steinbach, if you know the city very well. But there was also some different kind of flooding overland. The Pet Rescue, for example, they have sort of behind them, they have a creek that comes back and, the flooding came through the window wells, in their case, into the basement, as you may have heard in the news. Now, we're still getting a handle on all the damage, on what things might look like moving forward. Of course, there's tons of cleanup efforts that are going to be happening in Steinbach and in LaBroquerie. The new update for the amounts that fell are 135 millimeters over the course of the storm. And those numbers just being released now from Environment Canada.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Well, what if I told you that your every move is being tracked right now? You wouldn't have to look far because the culprit might be in your hand, your pocket, or your cup holder this morning. Smartphones now have the power to track our every move, and it's raising concern for parents of teens sharing their location on social media platforms. That conversation happened on Up to Speed with CBC's Faith Fundel. Jacques Marcoux was on Wednesday. He's the Director of Research and Analytics with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. He spoke about the importance of fostering healthy digital behavior.
I think that it's important to take stock of what we do and what kids are doing when they broadcast their real-time location to a broad network of individuals. If we take the lesson that I think a lot of millennials maybe learned over the years, if we think about the early days of Facebook, where I think looking back, a lot of people realize maybe oversharing every intimate moment of their lives was perhaps not in their best interest at the time, or maybe was like a lack of boundary setting for our digital lives. And I think that if we look at this now, we should probably be a little skeptical and just stop and just think about how we use this. It doesn't mean it's all bad, right? A lot of families use it to keep track of where, like parents may keep track of where their kids are. But I think the concern more that we have as an organization is sort of the blanket sharing with an entire network of people on social media that you may have, because I think there's some inherent risks there.
Let's continue this conversation about some of those risks with Mark Perreault. He's a cybersecurity expert. Good morning.
Morning.
So as we heard, most people share their locations with family, friends, and then when your location's enabled on an individual app, people may not realize what's going on there because who is accessing that information?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of applications, as everybody knows, when you sign up for a new application, you load a new application on your phone. Typically, you'll see a prompt that says, do you want to enable location sharing? And it'll give you an option to enable that location sharing either only when the app is running or all the time. So even when the app is in the background. And then finally, you can basically just decline using the location sharing. But most apps have that, well, we'll call it feature, I guess, inherent in them now.
So you said eventually you can decline using the location sharing. Does that mean that like it's not automatically going off, or if I, hit X out of that, is it going to end it? How proactive does a user have to be?
Yeah, so you have two options basically. When you first install an application, typically it will prompt you to ask if you want to allow location services, or if you have enabled it in the past, you can go back into your settings and you can at that point turn that function off. But yeah, I mean, really right off the get-go, app developers should be prompting you, or I think by law they have to prompt you to ask you if you're going to allow that behavior to happen.
If it's on in my settings, do they still have to prompt me? And if it's off in my settings and the prompt comes up and I say yes, does that change my settings? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as soon as you accept that you're allowing that app to track your location, it's on from that point forward until you shut it off again.
What are they doing with our information? Who's got this then?
So depending on the app provider and depending on their privacy policy and what they do with the data, many organizations will use that data to either use for themselves for proactive marketing. Some will sell that data to other types of businesses. There's a lot of apps and a lot of businesses that are part of kind of a conglomerate where they share data of different users. So they can use that for tracking and profiling. So for example, if I go to the gym 4 days a week, it'll track that location. And then maybe they'll sell that data to, a supplement company, for example, and they'll say, oh, this person goes to the gym 4 days a week. Maybe they need protein powder or pre-workout or something like that. So that information is highly used by the consumer industry to use that data in terms of targeting ads or other various reasons. But that's definitely one of the primary ones.
If we choose to decline the cookies, as they're called, or terms and conditions, what happens then? Like, I always think to myself sometimes, and I'm probably not that unusual for people listening here. You just hit accept because I figure then I'm going to have an easier time navigating whatever website I'm on. But is this all really about getting our data and sharing it? Because if you do decline it, will the site still give us the same service?
So I guess we'll just differentiate the two things. So declining a privacy or an acceptance policy in an app will not allow you to use the app. However, on the location part of it, if you decline using the location, it'll just make the app not as useful. So I'll use Google Maps for an example. When you use Google Maps, the perk to turning on your location is that it'll give you traffic information. It'll give you better information in terms of, how long it'll take you to get to your destination. So there's some benefit to using it in an app like that. If for myself, I use it to only allow while the app is being used. So that way it's not tracking my location constantly. So that way I still get the benefit out of using, the actual mapping software without it tracking my location when I'm not using the software.
As a cybersecurity expert, what concerns you the most about the way that people share their locations?
I think people are just maybe, like you said, skipping ahead and just accepting whatever pops up on their app. So that means that they're unnecessarily sharing their location data, whether it's with businesses, whether it's with, people that they're friends with. I'll use Snapchat for an example. There's what's called the Snap Map, where you essentially enable your location sharing so people can see where you are. You can do that at a granular level, so only specific people or friends or, by different groups are allowed to see your location data, which, for families and that kind of thing is useful, for partners and for parents and kids and that kind of thing. But again, if you're just haphazardly sharing your location, you could be opening it up to strangers. You could be opening it up to, all sorts of different people and organizations that you potentially don't want to be sharing that data with.
Obviously, vigilance, thinking about terms and conditions, though we should be reading every word. I don't think that is probably what most people do. But is there anything else we can think about to protect ourselves?
For sure. I think that a good kind of we'll call it cyber hygiene or mobile hygiene to do is to look through your settings occasionally, because there are those times where you've disabled something or you've read through a privacy and a user acceptance policy and you understand that policy, but what will happen is the app developer will send you an email saying, hey, we've updated our privacy policy or we've updated our user policy, which could have changes that you're not really ready to accept, or if they're enabling something that you're not really consenting to. So it is good if you do see an email from an app developer and they said that they've made an update. It's probably good to actually have a read through it and see what the differences are, or go back and check your settings and see if anything is different. Because as soon as they kind of give you that notice, that's their way of basically saying, you've already said yes to our policy. We're updating you on that policy, and inherently you've already accepted it. So it is good to read through those. I know they're not very digestible by the typical person, but I think for ones especially that carry a lot of data or that process a lot of your data, it's definitely worth having a skim through it to make sure that you understand what the changes are.
And what about, we started by talking about a conversation that my colleague Faith Fundell had an Up to Speed that was looking more at from the younger perspective for younger people. What are some cybersecurity practices that you think parents could teach their kids around this?
So first off, I think it's critical that parents really understand, as best as they can, how these technologies work and what the risks are. I think a lot of parents in general are just misinformed and they don't understand. They don't, maybe they don't take the time to look at their child's phone. But essentially, first understanding that for yourself, understanding what the application does, what the location services are doing, how to enable and disable them. And then, having that, either if your child is old enough to kind of understand the implications, having that conversation with them. And so they understand that. I actually had a conversation about this with my teen boys yesterday about how they're using location services. And I guess I've done a decent job in my career and as a parent that they're already only doing it on a, per person level with selected friends and then with their parents. But that would be ultimately the biggest thing is just like going through those settings, make sure you understand and make sure you're carrying that down to your family as well, because we can't rely on youth to fully understand the full risk implications of what these services do.
I realize you're a cybersecurity expert, Mark, but since you're mentioning your family, your teens, you know what I mean, going through all of these things, I wonder if there's also something here for people to understand about, beyond the physical locations, protecting ourselves, understanding what all that means for tracking and such, marketing. There's also social implications to this, because if you've got your location on, as you alluded to, this came up in our story meeting yesterday. You can have a group of friends somewhere that all know where everybody is. Maybe someone's left out of that. All of a sudden, it opens a whole other world of social implications with these location sharing, right?
Absolutely. We like to say that in some ways social media has, somewhat improved society, improved communication, improved how we interact with people. But a lot of this type of thing is very much a slippery slope, as you suggested. It could lead to people not feeling included, or people like just the fact that you have access to see where people are is a very large security concern from a physical and personal security perspective. So it really has, you can't do anything now without potentially being tracked or without your data being shared. So you just really have to be very careful about what you share and just be selective about it. If people are fine with sharing their data, sharing the location data, that's up to them. But I think it's really up to people to be as informed as possible about what they are sharing.
Well, thank you for giving us the information to help with that today. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
That's Mark Perreault, cybersecurity expert here in Winnipeg. By the way, earlier this half hour, we were talking to Taylor Friesen, who's from Le Brocquerie, and we were hearing more about the flooding there. She sent us a video. So if you want to check out that video, actually, we're rolling it right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, wow. Look at all the standing water in Le Brocquerie after the rain last night. Stranded cars as well still this morning. Water levels don't seem to have receded much in Le Brocquerie. We are hearing in Steinbach that some of the water has gone down, but we haven't necessarily verified that. That came from a counselor in a 6 a.m. interview when we first started the show. So we'll learn more throughout the day about what is happening in that part of Manitoba. Thank you, Taylor, for the video, and our YouTube producer, Azika, getting that up for us this half hour. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC. Stay with us because your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Lauren Donnelly in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's 18 degrees, mostly cloudy at the airport, becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, a high of 24 degrees. People in southeastern Manitoba are cleaning up after more than 100 millimeters of rain fell in only a few hours overnight. The CBC's Megan Ketchison has been checking in with people in Steinbach who are dealing with flooded basements. What can you tell us, Megan?
Well, for a lot of people in Steinbach, they're saying not again. Almost 1 year ago to the day, it saw 156 millimeters of rain fall over a 24-hour period. But overnight, Environment Canada says in parts of Steinbach, 136 millimeters of rain fell in 4 hours. People were up to their knees in water in the street. Vehicles were flooded. Graham Pollock was woken up by an alarm at the Steinbach and Area Animal Rescue. He's the vice president. When they got to the building, it was surrounded by water, and there was 2 meters of water in their basement, which is full of supplies.
Cat food, dog food, we've got tons of that. And then, we were just about this weekend, we were having a yard sale, a fundraising yard sale, and we had people drop items off for the yard sale. And so the basement's chock full of stuff for the yard sale as well.
Pollock is reaching out to their foster families now to take in 22 cats who are on the main floor. They're safe, but they need homes to go to right now. Last year, the rescue was also flooded. Pollock says they have insurance, but their deductible is $25,000, which is going to be a challenge for the nonprofit. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks, Megan. Manitoba has lost 2 seizure and epilepsy specialists in the last year. The departures leave only 2 epileptologists at the Health Sciences Centre. The hospital operates a seizures clinic and an epilepsy monitoring unit. An advocacy group fears the staffing losses will force those facilities to run at a limited capacity. Sarah Bettis is with the Epilepsy and Seizure Association of Manitoba.
And so how long somebody has to wait to see the specialist, even for that first visit, is going to increase exponentially because there are so few doctors now.
Shared Health says it hired a new seizure specialist, but the doctor won't join HSC until next year. If you're a parent, you've been asked to check your kid's immunization record now that school's in. Since the start of the year, measles has landed 13 in hospital, putting 2 in the ICU. Southern Health's Dr. Devinder Singh says most patients were under age 10. He suggests vaccination is key because the illness spreads easily and someone might not know they're infected.
People might be contagious before they even know they have measles because they might just have more general symptoms like a fever, cough, runny nose, red watery eyes, but haven't had the rash yet, but they could still be spreading measles to others.
Singh estimates actual cases could be 10 times higher than the 198 confirmed in Manitoba. He adds a spring outbreak led the region to do pop-up clinics administering 1,500 shots. The company that owns the Port of Churchill says it's getting into high gear with plans to expand. The Northern Port is not on the list of the first 5 major federal infrastructure projects. Chris Avery of Arctic Gateway Group admits more work needs to be done to show Ottawa it's ready for the major expansion.
Really fast forwarding and really investing in that infrastructure so it supports the Port of Churchill like the infrastructure that supports Vancouver, Montreal, and Thunder Bay.
Second piece is really fast-forwarding ice breaking and getting year-round access to the Port of Churchill.
Manitoba Conservatives blame Premier Wab Kinew for being unprepared to meet Ottawa's criteria for funding. Tory leader Abi Khan.
Other provinces have done the work. Other provinces have had consultation with Indigenous groups. This province is falling behind, clearly. It's embarrassing that this Premier thinks this is a positive announcement. It's a betrayal. It's a failure to our economic growth and prosperity in this province.
Arctic Gateway and the Premier hope Churchill will be included in a second phase of federal infrastructure investments expected in November. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Marcy.
Well, while I'm saying thank you, I want to thank all the people that worked hard on our programs this week in our current affairs unit here at CBC Manitoba. So that's your morning show, noon show, Up to Speed, your weekend show. Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, Kalkadan Mulugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, May McKillop, Marshall Hodgins, Dylan Longhurst, Itza Kixon, Chloe Friesen and Bruce Layden in our unit. Current affairs reporter in unit, Jim Agapito. Community reporter, Shanley Vidal. Hosts, Nadia Kidwai, Faith Bundell, Marjorie Delhouse, and this week, Lori Hoogstraten. From our news department, Heather Wells, Lauren Donnelly, Megan Ketchison, Christopher Garrow in Steinbach, Aaron Broman, and Joni Nicolo. YouTube producers, Brad Lillies, and today, Azika Abdelatif. Nellie Gonzalez is the producer of current affairs shows in our unit, and Leif Larson's the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Can't say enough about everybody. All of their work this week. It was a busy one. We were live out Wednesday at Merchants Corner, and then today with everything developing early about the flooding. Doesn't get to air without a team effort. So big thanks to everybody who worked so hard here. And also just good people. You're good people, Corey Funk.
Oh, you do. It's so
You're
fun.
good people. We're going to get coffee in a minute, though. What do you want to say about the drive before we go?
Nope. Quiet drive in Winnipeg so far, but if, of course, you are in Steinbach, the Brokery, definitely some flooded streets there, so you got to look out for that.
Yeah, for sure. If you can move your car.
If you can move your car.
All right, and speaking of good peeps, Abby.
A warm and humid day ahead. Sunshine in the north. The clouds will be more present in the southern parts of the province. We'll see temperatures climb close to 25 degrees down south, and up north we'll see get to 24.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, Manitoba. You're all good people. Thank you for joining us this morning and listening to Information Radio. We appreciate you. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Remember, next local programming is on Radio Noon with Marjorie Dalhouse. We're going to hear more about that cleanup in the southeast. And then Up to Speed with Faith Fundell between 3 and 6 o'clock. The Current, though, is next right here on 89.3 FM. I'm Marcy Marcusa, as mentioned. Thanks for listening.